Hello and welcome to another standard video. Today we are revisiting the Angels archetype with this mono-white Angels deck, which did not really pick up any upgrades with Marvel superheroes, but the core of the deck is mostly from Foundations, so this deck is going to be in standard for a few more years to come, and outside of the Foundations cards there's very few that will rotate in early 2027, so it's a relatively safe investment. So then if we start out with our 1-drops, Momo is one of the few non-Angels in the deck, but it's still a great inclusion as it will discount the first flyer we play each turn while also getting +1/+1 when deploying them. We also have a couple other 1-drops that we can also maybe tutor up using the Starfield Shepherd, which can be warped for 1 and a white to either find a plains or a 1-mana creature and put it into our hand. So then besides Momo, we can also get a Lightstall Inquisitor, which is a 1-mana non-flying angel, which can also maybe disrupt the opponent's hand slightly. And I'm also including one Hinterland Sanctifier as another non-angel, since we do have a little bit of a life gain synergy, mostly with the Exemplar of Light, which can pick up an extra +1 counter whenever we gain life, and then if that happens for the first time each turn, we also get to draw a card. So that covers our 1-drops. At 2 mana, we can potentially warp a Shepherd or deploy a Youthful Valkyrie, which will pick up a +1/+1 counter whenever another angel we control enters. It's also very nice with the Shepherd, which can be warped and then later cast a second time. And then a Jada is of course one of the main payoffs for the Angel archetype. A 2/2 with Flying and Vigilance can make a white to cast Angel spells, and then each other Angel we control enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it, so the more creatures we have in play, the scarier Jada becomes. And it also has great synergy with the Exemplar of Light, because even though we're not gaining a life, if the Exemplar enters with a number of +1 counters, it will still draw a card that way, so that's another neat interaction. Then we also have the Inspiring Overseer from Foundations, 2/1 flyer that gains a life and draws a card, so just a good way to kind of bridge the gap, give us more random bodies that replace themselves, and the 1 life gain is still very nice for the Exemplar. And then of course Lyra Dawnbringer is another payoff for the Angels deck, giving them all +1/+1 and a lifelink, in addition to just being a 5/5 flying first strike lifelink herself, so it can also hit incredibly hard. And then rounding out the deck, we have some interaction with Erode to destroy a creature or planeswalker, replacing it with a basic. Can sometimes target your own creatures if you need the extra mana. And then a Daydream has a couple cool applications in the deck. Can flicker a creature and make it enter with an additional +1 counter, can also flash it back. So flickering something like a Starfield Shepherd that's just been warped is a great way to keep it on the battlefield and to re-enable its enter the battlefield ability. We can also that way pick up additional counters on the Valkyrie, or maybe flicker an Overseer to draw an extra card and gain 1 more life. And then we also have a one-off Halia, which I forgot to mention, another card with a warp mechanic and another non-angel that can make it so that we gain life when our creatures enter. If we gained 3 or more by the end of our turn, we also get to draw a card. So another great enabler for the Exemplar of Light. And sometimes we can also on turn 2 warp Halia and target it with a Daydream to now have a 4/4 Halia on the battlefield. And then we've got the 2 copies of Practiced Offense as a nice pump spell for the team, giving them all a +1/+1 counter, and then 1 creature gets our choice of Double Strike or Lifelink until end of turn, so it can also help us end the game a turn sooner, or maybe the Lifelink can also help enable the Exemplar or Halia. And then Sheltered by Ghosts is one of the cards that will rotate in early 2027, but for now still a solid removal spell that also gives us an answer to some non-creature permanents, which we otherwise can struggle to interact with. And the added lifelink is of course also very nice to enable your Exemplar of Light. And then the mana base has the full set of Cavern of Souls, another card that will rotate early 2027, but for now a great way to make our Angels uncounterable against blue decks. And then plenty of planes, I'm even using the Jumpstart Angel art, and then 2 Abandoned Air Temples, which can also be a nice mana sink to give our team additional +1/+1 counters, and a Soulstone Sanctuary as a creature land with all types, including Angel, so it can also help you synergize with Lyra or give you an extra Angel for Jada, and can be a nice finisher against control decks after they maybe wiped your board, because of course sweepers are going to be quite painful for our deck to deal with. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the play. We have Valkyrie into maybe an Overseer. It's pretty slow and fair. Don't think we can keep. Alright, this one is a little bit better. Shepherd probably getting Momo, so we can discount a Lyra. So then maybe Overseer goes. Or I can get rid of the Inquisitor to keep the card draw, but then we don't have anything early on. Opponent playing the mono-white Aura deck, or maybe some hero variant. Seam Rip the Inquisitor's fine. I could wait a turn on Shepherd so I can Daydream it. I think that's worth it. Origin of the Avengers starts by scrying 2. Can't keep Cavern in hand for now. So we'll get Momo. And then, what else? Can go for another Inquisitor or a Sanctifier. Plains is also an option, but we shouldn't need it since we already have Momo to get Lyra down to 4 mana. I guess Sanctifier could have some upside if we end up drawing the Exemplar. Opponent puts in a Skyward Spider. So Sheltered by Ghosts is kind of the swingiest card they could play here. So yeah, it is the Aura deck. With a bit of a hero theme. And an Ethereal Armor. So yeah, 5/5 Flying First Strike, blocks our Shepherd. Could also block Lyra. So then we get to play Sanctifier into Momo into Youthful Valkyrie. And then next turn Lyra could be decent. On Chapter 3 they get a +1 counter on their entire team. So yeah, 2 very different mono-white decks going at it. Opponent is on empty at least. And Spider attacks, so opens them up to a very big attack on the way back with lifelink, so we're pretty happy to see this. And an Erode could also come in handy, but for now it's got to be Lyra. And hope they didn't keep a removal spell on top. Alright, that's going to be Captain America Wings of Freedom. 3/1 Flying First Strike. So yeah, they've got 10 power worth of First Strike on defense. Skyward Spider has a Ward 2, so we can still pay for that. So if we set up a big attack, this can turn into quite the blowout, although I could also just remove the Spider before combat, which probably makes more sense. And yeah, our opponent's gonna scoop it up. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Our hand's pretty underwhelming, don't think we can keep. And this one is a little bit better. So Momo pairs well with the Shepherd. And then I think we keep the Practiced Offense over the Inquisitor. So then turn 2, we can Shepherd for 1 mana. And then get, I guess, another Inquisitor makes sense here. Don't have a reason to get Sanctifier, don't have any life gain synergies lined up. And then the Inquisitor pairs better with the offense if we plan to get aggressive. Opponent pitches Multiversal Passage and a Rapid Rescue to mill. So it is a self-mill deck. And now an Overlord. Alright, so probably just a typical graveyard combo deck with Superior Spider-Man, although don't often see cards like Rapid Rescue and the Midnight Tilling, or even a Mold Tender for that matter, so it could be something slightly different. Picked up Lyra, so now we might just want to get a Plains with the Shepherd, so that next turn we can cast Lyra. So not the most exciting turn here. Triple Starting Town into Formidable Speaker. Discarding, unfortunately, Bringer of the Last Gift, so opponent gets Superior Spider-Man, so they can wipe the board next turn. So, yeah, going for Lyra is not the play. I could practice Defense to try and get some more damage in, but it's not going to be much. So instead, I could also consider eroding my own creature to get it in the graveyard. It's unclear whether they would go for Bringer next turn already, or if they first try to fill the graveyard some more. If I play a Lyra, then they're kind of forced to maybe Bringer, and then maybe that's a beatable board state. If I get some Shepherds in play and then give them Double Strike eventually. Could also just play a Shepherd now, and then get another Plains. Attack for 2, but then we're not really forcing the Bringer yet, and then my situation might get worse. So maybe we do go for Lyra. And then I don't mind attacking with the Inquisitor, so that if they block with Speaker, I get it back. Maybe worse if I plan to set up a practice defense in the near future. So your opponent does actually take it. So our opponent now forced to play Bringer of the Last Gift already. Okay, so facing 10 power worth of flyers, still gonna be an uphill battle. But Shepherd can get another Momo. Next turn I can Momo plus Shepherd. And try and steal it with Double Strike at some point. Ooh, opponent hard casting a Terror of the Peaks. Yeah, that's also pretty solid. Can deal 1 damage. Targets the Shepherd. So I cannot block the 1/1. Fair enough. But now they left themselves dead to erode plus practice defense. So they maybe got a little bit too aggressive there. Opponent's gonna draw. And our opponent scoops it up. Not sure why, maybe they thought we could animate a Sanctuary. But yeah, I guess the offense would have done it too. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw with what looks like a keepable hand. Momo can discount our Exemplar, Sanctifier can enable it. And I don't mind if Momo gets answered here since we have a backup. So blue-red, is it Lessons, is it Prowess? Or, yeah, I guess Spelementals, but this is more likely to be in the Prowess deck. Okay, so can go Sanctifier plus Valkyrie as well. Or we can Shelter by Ghost to Hatcher before it starts making Drakes, which can also get in the way. I mean, ideally, we Sheltered by Ghosts on something with more toughness. So I think for now it's going to be Sanctifier plus Valkyrie. And then we'll see how much they can pump the Hatcher. A single Drake token's not a nightmare. Can probably go over the top. It's gonna be a Slick Shot next, so at most one non-creature spell. So I don't think we're interested in blocking, because even a Burst Lightning, if I put Valkyrie on Hatcher, they can finish this off. They could have some pump spells. So we'll let them be. And a Secret Identity means they now get to add 4 counters to the Hatcher, which is good for 1 Drake at least. Okay, so Exemplar, the play now. Triggers off Sanctifier, so up to a 4/4. A Valkyrie, a 2/4, also a decent blocker. And then we're not attacking, since I don't necessarily want to trade Momo for a Drake. Alright, our hand's got some decent tools. Want to avoid losing too many of my creatures, and then we can look into answering the opponent's stuff. Ideally when they're mostly tapped out. It's going to be a second Slick Shot, 2 cards left in hand. And a Wild Ride to pump the Hatcher. So Momo chumping the Hatcher is pretty reasonable. Do we want to do anything else? We'll see here. Our opponent's got a Sellsword to answer the Sanctifier, so we lose our source of life gain for the Exemplar. So this is happening, and then I can trade Valkyrie for a Slick Shot. I'll leave myself with an Exemplar, and then I can answer both of the opponent's creatures with Sheltered and Erode. That seems pretty solid. Yeah. Still naming Angel here, so now I can also play Momo. Or I can first Sheltered by Ghosts. I'll go for the Hatcher, I think. Attack, see what we draw. A Shepherd I could also warp. But going Momo, keep up Erode, still probably safer, or we can just warp the Shepherd now. So how do we lose? Opponent top decks a card draw spell, and then goes pump spell fling effect. Still seems unlikely. Yeah, I think if we just erode the Slick Shot now, they're pretty dead. Don't let them top deck another hexproof trick. No black mana to cast a Sellsword. And yeah, the lifelinking Exemplar is going to go the distance. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw with a reasonable hand. Momo sets up Shepherd on turn 2, can still get another 1-drop, facing turn 1 Elves. So yeah, the Sheltered by Ghosts is going to have to do a lot of work. Turn 2 Cub can still cast another 2-drop. So I probably don't have time for Shepherd, I probably need to shelter the Cub already. Or I can wait to answer the finisher like Ouroboros. But now our opponent gets to untap with 7, potentially 8 mana on turn 3. So we could just die to like a Craterhoof Behemoth if I do not Sheltered by Ghosts. But if they just cast an Ouroboros, even if I answer the Cub next turn, that's still going to win them the game. So it's turn 2 and we're already between a rock and a hard place. I think we go Shepherd. And then get the Inquisitor, probably makes the most sense. Can cast it. Based on what they exile, we can maybe decide if attacking is worth it. They pitched another Elves. I think trading Momo for Manifestation is not unreasonable. Alright, let's see what they have. Could be a Rhythm for 4 to get Ouroboros. Yep, it's gonna be Rhythm for 2 actually. So, getting another Cub. And then now they still have enough mana for Ouroboros, untap Manifestation. And can they Nature's Rhythm again? They're just going to play an elf. Well, that was quite the turn. Just take 3. So now I'm forced to Sheltered by Ghosts. Inquisitor doesn't do much. So let's see, can Shepherd for 1 and then still Shelter. And what am I getting? Versus Inquisitor, which maybe allows me to double block, although with Practice Defense we want to avoid trading for their 3/3s. Still allows to trade for a 2/2, I suppose. So yeah, maybe that's good enough. And then put it on Momo. Exile Ouroboros. Problem being, our opponent can still harmonize Nature's Rhythm to do it all over again. So yeah, this game seems very over. Opponent can just go for Craterhoof Behemoth now. And that's game. Yeah, this is part of what the problem with Standard is right now. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with what looks like a keepable hand. Turn 1 Momo makes a lot of hands much better. And then we'll have to wait and see. Opponent with a Bruce Banner, interesting. So Halia would be better if we can immediately draw a card off of it. But I could also just go Inquisitor plus Valkyrie this turn, or rather Valkyrie into Inquisitor. And then maybe just hardcast Halia next turn. And then we're also going wide for the Practice Offense. So our opponent could have some ways to maybe airbend Bruce Banner and then transform it. They could be playing Shiko in a Jeskai Shell to replay these out of the graveyard in their transformed form, which is something we've seen in the past. Opponent's going to pass with 2 mana up. So normally we would want Cavern on Angel, but I could also name Human here if we want to make sure Halia resolves. Yeah, that seems reasonable to me. Although there's no real reason to do it before attacking. So, not really interested in trading Inquisitor for Bruce. They also cannot draw at instant speed. Opponent's got a Wondrous Wasp, that makes sense. Taps down to Valkyrie. So in that case, Momo is still happy to trade since we have another. I think we still keep the Inquisitor for now. And then Cavern can still name Angel. Opponent accepts the trade. Still gonna go for Halia. And then maybe with a Practice Defense we can go for Lifelink if we want to draw. Opponent's got 3 mana up. So start with Momo. Maybe they have another Wasp, which is why they were okay trading the first one. Nope, it's going to be an Aven Interrupter. So then I could Practice Defense, and then I like the Lifelink mode here. If we pump Halia, they cannot trade. And Inquisitor to trade for Interruptor is also reasonable. Although next turn we can make it even bigger if we flash this back. Although I guess Interruptor does make flashing back cost 2 more as well. Yeah, let's get aggressive. Draw sheltered by ghosts. So they appear to be just blue-white, and then I imagine they'll have ways to airbend to still make use of the backside of Bruce Banner. Yep, there we see the Airbender Ascension, but forced to use it on my creature. Luckily, no Interrupter to make the airbended cards more expensive. Alrighty, so a free Momo seems like a good starting point, unless we want to get the extra life gain trigger of Halia. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Just go Halia into Momo into a 2-mana Overseer. So we're back on the board. Maybe I have to watch out for an Avatar's Wrath to exile all my creatures. And yeah, our opponent's just too far behind here. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the play. We've got a keepable hand. A Momo discounting Overseer can maybe play it turn 2, although going Sanctifier into Valkyrie probably makes more sense. So the Valkyrie can start picking up counters. And then we're hoping to find some of our more expensive angels, like an Exemplar is perfect. So yeah, if Momo survives, next turn Exemplar can gain a life of Sanctifier, immediately get a counter and draw a card. That would be a great start. Sadly, do not have Cavern of Souls to make my creatures uncounterable, so Mono Blue could have something to say about it. So could test out the waters with an Overseer, but then my turn would be pretty inefficient. So let's see what happens. Possible they're just holding a bounce spell. Opponent did have the Exhale, so they are actually playing some dragons, presumably. Yeah, Cavern of Souls would have completed this hand. Now Dragonstorm, so might actually be some sort of Kona combo deck, who knows. Yep, we see the Omniscience and now the green mana. They do not have a way to tap down Kona yet, so we should be safe there. And they wrote also a cheap answer. So I think I go Overseer, because if I draw a land I can still play the Valkyrie afterwards. Alright, found another Exemplar. Don't know if I'll be able to tap out for it next turn. So our opponent is looking for one of their planets to tap down Kona, and then of course a namesake card. So if I tap out for Exemplar, it's a bit risky, because then our opponent could just untap, play Kona with a planet, and get back an Omniscience, or put an Omniscience in play rather, since they probably have another one. So safest would be to just go for another Valkyrie here, and keep up Erode. Because we're pretty far ahead on board. Just need to preserve our advantage. They could still have the Lost in the Maze to tap stuff down. Opponent falls to 2. Pass a turn. But yeah, if they have the Maze and then also have Kona with a planet, we could still die, but it's just going to be a kicked Consult. So then now I don't see them comboing. At least not through an Erode. But yeah, the Kona combo deck can certainly win from 2 life, since they can pretty much go infinite. So do we see Kona plus a planet? And there's a planet. Now they need Kona. So they had it, but we have the answer. And our opponent's not gonna get a second attempt. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a reasonable hand, assuming Jada lives. I'll try it. Missing a good 1-drop. Although Shepherd could also find Momo, for instance. Yeah, I think Jada for now has the highest upside. Although Valkyrie is less likely to get removed if they're holding a Burst Lightning. If I do get a Momo, then next turn I could go Momo into Jada, but that's it. Let's just play Jada and see. And get to untap. So then now a Momo was a good draw. Should probably start by attacking. And name Angel. And then go for a Momo, which they could still counter. Into Valkyrie, which I'll make uncounterable. Into probably another Valkyrie here instead of Shepherd. So those are getting nice and large. Opponent on lessons. Yeah, they've got some catching up to do. They still need white mana. And they also had a lesson for Momo. So yeah, this turn Valkyrie into Shepherd before attacking. And I can get another Momo or a Lifestyle Inquisitor. Inquisitor would grow the Valkyrie, so that might honestly be better. And yeah, opponent's just gonna scoop it up here. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We've got a keepable hand. Jada into hopefully a couple Valkyries. Facing turn 1 planes and Survivor, so it's the Aura deck. Erode's gonna be useful. Yeah, I'll play Jada, hope they don't have a Seam Rip or a Sheltered by Ghosts. And then next turn we can maybe double spell. Take 2. And it's gonna be the Skyward Spider. Okay, so Shepherd to get a land, and then I can still play Valkyrie afterwards. Seems like the play. Or we can flicker the Shepherd with a Daydream, which might be better. So then Jada attacks for 2. Shepherd gets planes. And then I can also get a Momo with a second trigger. Or a Lifestyle Inquisitor, which is also an Angel for Jada. Is that better? Yeah, I don't hate it. Can still double Valkyrie next turn. So yeah, not a bad turn 3. We'll see if they have a Sheltered by Ghosts. If they do, it's going to be tricky to pay enough ward on the Skyward Spider. For now, double Scavenger, okay. And our opponent's going to maybe keep up Shard Mage's Rescue. So, seems like a double Valkyrie turn. Now with Momo, can play Momo 1 mana Valkyrie and then still a 2 mana Valkyrie. They can give their Spider flying at instant speed with Shard Mage's Rescue, so we may not be able to attack this turn. Or what I should have considered is attacking first, see if they want to flash in, the rescue, and then I can respond and pay the ward with Erode. But now I'm gonna be short of mana since Jada does not help me cast it. So yeah, we'll just play it more passively. Because yeah, they would get essentially +3 on the spider. So I guess I could still attack with the shepherd and trade. But the Inquisitor probably wants to stay back. Because they would get +1/+1 and then 2 +1 counters. Opponent's gonna take it. So 1 unknown and presumably a Shard Mage's Rescue. It's a Feather of Flight for starters. So they are hoping for Sheltered by Ghosts. And they're gonna pass it back. I draw my own. So the ward does make things a little trickier. But yeah, I can cast Valkyrie using Jada and then still have Erode with ward payments available. That's gonna be good enough. Can also still flash back a Daydream to get more triggers. And go to combat. And Inquisitor could also get busy. Does Momo attack? Yeah, I mean, at this point, they seem pretty dead to me. And yeah, opponent scoops it up. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. We have turn 1 Momo, turn 2 Inquisitor, maybe turn 3 Exemplar. So it's not perfect. If we find any of our warp creatures with Daydream, we can set something up. So I'll give it a try. Facing turn 1 Llanowar Elves, always scary. So it's the green-white build. So yeah, if they start out with Elves into Badger Mole, we're going to be very far behind. It's going to be a recruit with Offspring instead. Alright, so Inquisitor is all I've got. Could flicker it if we want to exile one more card. Just to kind of slow them down a bit. Since my hand doesn't have anything worth daydreaming. And this game might be over very quickly, especially if they play an Ouroboros next turn. So then I'm not going to have time to leverage the Daydream otherwise. Yeah, may as well. And then, ideally, Exemplar into Lyra. But yeah, Ouroboros is what I'm terrified of here. Practice Defense exiled, also a lot less effective, because now they cannot flash it back easily. They need to cast it for 4 mana first. But they do have the Gearhulk, so that can maybe find an answer. Or several answers. Seam Rip plus the fight spell, so they can answer Momo and the Exemplar. Or 2 fight spells. So it's not looking good. Recruit attacks. I may as well trade. Alright, so yeah, still play an Exemplar, and then we know it's gonna get fought. But then Lyra is gonna be a little bit too big for the Gearhulk until they maybe play the Practice Defense first. I guess I could Practice Defense now. Opponent plays another Elves first, And then they can still play Jennifer. So yeah, I guess next turn they still have the mana to both offense and resolve. Sheltered by Ghosts. That's a draw. Although it's a pretty awkward one, because I'm not going to be able to shelter anything that survives the fight at the moment. So the play might still be Lyra, force them to offense plus resolve, and then I can go Exemplar Shelter, but then I'm probably still dead to the flashback offense. So yeah, I don't really see a great line. At least the fight will gain me 5 life, because it is an actual fight. So it goes for a double strike. And then they can still resolve. Yeah, that Bright Glass Gear Hulk did a lot of work. Opponent now also giving Jennifer double strike. I guess that's another option. And then they can still resolve. So then I'm taking 23, but gaining 5. So yeah, we're still dead here. Alright, GG's. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. What do we think of our opener? If Jada lives, it's not the worst. Opponent, a red-white burn. Okay, so the life gain should come in handy. But then again, they're also likely to have some removal that they can point at my key angels. A black mage's rod. Now Momo, sadly, I do not have 2 white sources to go Momo into a 2-drop. So then what we prefer, still Jada, or maybe get the Youthful Valkyrie going. And then hope to draw a land next turn. Opponent with a Dragon Storm to drain for 2. The Valkyrie at least blocks the 2-1. And I found a land, perfect. So then I could go Momo into Overseer, or Momo plus Jada. Let's go Momo plus Overseer for now. Find a Shepherd. Could keep the Valkyrie on defense, but let's get a bit more aggressive. So then next turn we have a lot of options. If Momo lives, we could go for an Exemplar. They're gonna Burst Lightning the Sanctifier. So then now the Exemplars may be a little bit less impressive. I'll trade the Overseer since we don't have a Lyra in hand. Okay, so Daydream the draw. So then, how do we feel about Jada into Shepherd, get a Plains? And then I can flicker the Shepherd with a Daydream. That looks good. And what do we get with a second Shepherd trigger? Could be another Plains, honestly. Big attack for 9. I have a 6-5 on defense. And our opponent scoops it up. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a promising hand. Momo with Jada is always exciting. And then we just want to play as many angels as possible. Opponent with turn 1 planes. So yeah, I mean, Jada versus Valkyrie. Could also start with a Valkyrie, but Jada can help speed up Lyra. Can't quite play both this turn. But yeah, turn 3 Lyra incoming, perhaps. Opponent is blue-white. Should attack first and then play Lyra. And our opponent's just consulting. So if they're on control, of course, Day of Judgment at any point can still catch them back up. And they could have any number of removal spells. Alright, Shepherd's kind of nice. So Day of Judgment seems somewhat likely. So I don't know if I want to necessarily commit more to the board. Shepherd, I guess, is a pretty safe investment since it'll just go in exile while still pumping Momo. And then I could get a replacement Momo to get back on the board next turn, or a Lightstall Inquisitor. I could erode my own creature before the board wipe happens, so that I can get an extra land that way. So yeah, maybe we like the Inquisitor as an angel for Valkyrie. But for now, let me just attack and see what happens. Opponent takes it. So yeah, I do not feel the need to commit more to the board. There's the Day of Judgment. No surprises there. Now, do they have a second copy is the question. So I can start with Valkyrie, play Inquisitor, or I can go Shepherd and get maybe a Momo after all, and play Inquisitor, or just get another Inquisitor. Yeah, don't mind the Inquisition here to maybe throw off their curve. And with their opponent at 4, it hits a bit harder. So we'll see if they have a second sweeper. And they are actually Jeskai with a tablet. So missing red. They do have another Day of Judgment. And Exemplar to draw. So now we want to play Valkyrie into Exemplar, I guess. And hope they don't have a third. Possible they're holding a bunch of counter spells, which we're fine with. So yeah, this turn, Jada into Inquisitor, grow the Valkyrie some more. Everything's uncounterable. Opponents pitching a Lightning Helix, which they weren't able to cast. But they do have a Get Lost. So they fall to 1. May as well go exploring here, and then putting a counter on Exemplar can also draw an extra card. Herod we probably don't need. Find a Valkyrie, so I'm not gonna commit another creature to the board. And I guess we'll save the map token so Valkyrie can maybe go exploring next turn. Alright, and that'll do it. Awesome. So yeah, we got to see this mono-white Angels deck in action. And yeah, it's nice to have a deck that's mostly rotation-proof, with a lot of the cards coming out of Foundations. So you'll be able to play with these Angels for a long time. Although looking forward to the next year's worth of expansions, I don't think there's going to be a ton of new angels printed, especially in the underwater set. I don't expect any angels to appear there. And then even in the other sets that have been announced, I'm not expecting too many angels to make an appearance. So I don't think the deck is necessarily going to pick up a ton of new upgrades. Universes Beyond rarely include angels, but you never know. So yeah, I don't necessarily think this is the best deck in Standard, definitely an underdog against all the green ramp strategies, and Jeskai Control probably is quite favored as well. So out of the more popular decks, maybe Prowess is a slightly favored matchup for the Angels, but otherwise most of the meta decks are probably advantaged, so it's not a deck I would necessarily recommend, but if you like Angels and you want a deck you can play for the next couple years, starting with mono-white Angels is maybe not the worst decision. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.